Hey everybody, and welcome to How to Play Legions Imperialis, the Horus Heresy. What I'm going to do today is teach you how to play your very first game of Legions Imperialis with the contents of the two-player starter set in a legal format. So this is not going to be able to use the entire contents, but it is designed to show you how to muster an army and play your first games. You don't need a huge table to play on for your first couple games, because what we're trying to do here is get down the core mechanics of how to muster an army, put out a scenario, and then basically throw down the orders that you need to use and go through the different phases of the game. So today we're going to be playing with the Sons of Horus against the Solar Auxilia. They are the two factions that come in the box. And we're going to go to step one of playing Legions Imperialis. That is to muster an army. Now, inside the box set, you're going to get enough to make a Legion demi-company and a Solar Auxilia sub-cohort, and at its most basic level, including all of the sort of like requirements, and at least one option, those are going to boil down to roughly 300 points. Now, when you make an army in Legions Imperialis, you have a maximum of 30% of your points spent on other stuff. That does mean that the Warhound Titans that come in the box, you won't be able to use until you're playing roughly a 1,500 point game and add some more stuff to your armies. But this is going to let us come to grips with it. So for the Astartes, we have built a Legion demi-company. Now there are 4 required units in that company. You need an HQ choice, a support choice, and 2 core choices. And the 2 core choices must be Legion tactical detachments. Now to make it 300 points, what we've done to one of the detachments is added some assault marines, and the second detachment we've added some missile launchers. That's going to allow us to show off some of the various core like functions of the game. For an HQ choice, you only have one option. It's the Legion command stand, coming in at 25 points. For our support option, we're taking a Dreadnought Talon, which you can build into the box, 4 Dreadnoughts, 2 armed with las cannons, and 2 armed with Carries assault cannons. And then finally, as a battle tank choice, we're taking 2 Legion Sycarans with accelerator autocannons and heavy bolter sponsons and hull-mounted heavy bolters. That comes to a grand total of 297 points. We have 5 formations, one of which is an independent character, commander that needs to attach to a formation, and we're going to have that as our first half. Now, having selected a Legions Astartes army, we also have to pick a Legion rule that's going to be in the parent army list. So for this, we have the Sons of Horus. When I'm within 6 inches of the enemy and firing light and light anti-tank weapons, I get to reroll all my rolls of 1. Basically, these guys are close-range brawlers ready to hunt people down up close. Then for the Solar Auxilia, we are building a sub-cohort. Now, it's structured much like the demi-company in that it requires an HQ, 2 core choices, and a support choice to start off with. So for this game, we're going to be playing with the Legate Commander. You can have 1 per 1,500 points. This guy's important because everybody that doesn't has the Chain of Command ability doesn't get to use any orders other than advance during a turn unless they're within his aura to give them additional orders. We have 2 Las Rifle Tertios, just 4-man squads of folks with las cannons. These are just basic Solar Auxilia grunts. We have a Leman Russ Strike Squadron, and in our final compulsory choice, we have a unit of Auxilia Karenite Ogrins. These are the big daddies with their big pinchy claws that like to murder things. That's going to come in at 301 points, but it's close enough for government work. We'll be able to play this game just fine. So, we mustered our armies, we declared our allegiance. The Solar Auxilia will be loyalists, the Sons of Horus traitors, and now we're going to get to our mission. So for this game, I'm just playing on a kill team size 22 by 30 inch mat with a single objective. Whoever holds this central objective here is going to score 3 VPs per round. On the second round. On the 3rd round, they'll score 5. On the 4th round, they'll score 7. And on the 5th round, because the game only typically lasts 5 rounds, they're going to score 12. Whoever scores the most points will win, and that will give us a chance to go through a few turns and fight it out. So, having done our mission, we both get to do secondary objectives. That means that you're going to roll 2 dice per commander. So a 3 and a 4 for the Sons of Horus, and a 3 and a 4 for the Solar Auxilia, and pick from the secondary objective list. Now these are just little bonus objectives that allow you to earn points at the end of the game, and break ties in the case of having come very close turn by turn. So with 3 and 4 for both of them, they're going to have a choice between control the battlefield and breakthrough. So control the battlefield is scoring at the end of the battle. The player with this secondary objective scores 5 VPs if they control at least 1 battlefield quarter, 10 if they control 2, and 15 if they control 3 or more. And then breakthrough is, at the end of the battle, the player with this secondary objective scores 5 VPs if 1 friendly detachment carrying supplies broke through enemy lines, 10 if it's 2, and 15 if 3 or more. And you have to give 5 models, basically objectives, that are trying to get to the other half of the table. So both are going to go for control of the battlefield, because that'll keep this nice and simple. Both players are trying to hold the table quarters of the game by having the most scale at the end of the game. So now we're on to deployment. So at the beginning of deployment, both commanders will roll to see who controls the battlefield. They'll get to pick the table side after all the terrain's put down. Now, terrain's very important in this game, as you can occupy buildings. All of these are Civitas Imperialis buildings. They're going to confer a bonus in assault, cover saves, all kinds of important stuff, but they can also be targeted and destroyed by certain weapons. So rolling off, the Sons of Horus, Luna Wolves, commander gets a 2, and the Solar Auxilia gets a 1. That means that the Sons of Horus can decide who controls the battlefield, choose the half of the table they want to deploy on along edgewise. We're just going to have a 2-inch deployment zone for the sake of this sort of like micro mission. And then rolling off, they will have to put down the first unit when they deploy. So, having chosen this edge, because this is the side I'm standing on, we'll be back after they deploy. They will go back and forth, alternating deploying units. And when they deploy their commanders, those commanders must be attached to a unit of the same type. So for both commanders, that's infantry, meaning the tertios, or the basic like tactical marines will have to have the commanders attached to them. And so both sides are now deployed. You can see here we have the tactical detachment with the commander attached, the Dreadnought Talon, and the Sycarans over here. Across from us, we have the Ogrins, the Tertio with the commander attached, which is important because this 10-inch range bubble will allow other orders to be issued other than advance to these units. The Leman Russes, and then the last unit of las rifles deployed here at the edge. So we're on to the first turn now, and that means issuing orders. The order issuing phase is a blind system. You're going to issue a face-down order token to each of the units in your army, and that will allow you to do a series of different things. If you issue a first fire order, it's going to prevent you from moving, but allow you to shoot during the shooting phase first. If you issue a advance order, they can move and make a shot, but during the advancing fire step of the combat phase. If you issue a march order, infantry can triple their speed, non-infantry can double it, but no shooting. And if you issue a charge order, that unit can make a double move if they can end in contact with a model from an enemy detachment, and then fight in the engagement phase of the combat subset. You also have a fallback order, but that will only be issued if you lose a combat or fail a break test by losing half or more of your models during a round. So let's issue some orders to these units. So face down, we will issue orders to all of these models one at a time, and then both commanders, when they are finished, will reveal them together. And on the opposite side, checking range, who's within 10 of the commander. Anybody within 10 can receive any order they want, and wisely, everyone's inside that bubble. So now right before the initiative phase, all orders are revealed. So we can see here that this unit of Sycarans got an advance order, as did this tactical detachment. The Dreadnoughts got a march order and an advance order for the commander's unit. The Karanite Ogres got a march order. This Tertio got an advance order. The Leman Russes got first fire, and the final unit of Tertios got an advance as well. So now we're into the initiative phase. Both sides can roll off. For the Sons of Horus, it's going to be a 2 and a 5 for the Solar Auxilia, meaning they have initiative in the first phase of the game, which is going to be the movement phase. They get to pick a unit with an order that allows them to move, and then make a move. So starting with this unit, which is going to be the boss's unit, they're going to make a movement order, and they have a movement stat on the Tertio of 5 inches. So because half or more of them can end in base contact with this building, they are going to consider garrisoning it. You place as many models on top as possible and put the rest on the card. And they are now inside of that building and considered to be garrisoning it. They'll have the advantage of a cover save, +2 to their close assault if someone's charging them, and generally just be safer from harm. And they leave their order there. They'll remove that later during the combat phase when they start shooting. We're going to go over now to the Ogrins, and they would have a march order. They would be able to triple move if they moved. The Leman Russes can't move because they have a first fire order, and these guys could have also activated with an advance. But because this is an alternate activation game, play passes over now to the Marine Commander, and he gets to pick a unit to activate. we are going to activate the commander unit over here as well. They will make a 5-inch move, as the Legion Dummy Company's basic tactical detachment has a movement of 5 inches as well. So moving 5 inches, they can also all, at least half, get into contact with this building, and will take up formations here, with the remainder of the models with their bolters going on the card. And now they have activated. Play then passes back and forth on both sides. So the next eligible unit to activate is going to be the Ogrins. They cannot come within 1 inch, no matter how much they would like to, of the enemy without doing a charge order, so they're going to make their basic movement, which for the Ogrins is 5 inches, they're infantry. So tripling their move with the infantry rule is going to mean that they have the ability to move 15 inches, so 8 and then 7 more. And they're all going to get cover behind this central objective building and try and control it for the next round. Now they are in coherency because all models have a model within 2 inches of another friendly model. Units that are garrisoning a building are all considered to be in coherency range of each other. Now each of these buildings has a garrison cap. Large buildings have a garrison cap of 2. The smaller ones will only be able to hold a single detachment. The garrison number is the number of detachments that can basically be inside of it. So if I wanted to, a second infantry unit could garrison this one, but if the Ogrins go inside this building, they're all that's allowed to hang out inside. So continuing with the alternating activations, the march order is done. They won't be shooting later on. The Dreadnoughts, who also got a march order, are going to stand still for a moment, and the Psycherons are going to make a move. Now they have a movement of 10 inches and an advance order, so they're going to move forward 8, and then 2, and hide out behind this building with a little bit of cover. There's only 1 unit available to move left in the Auxilia army, so play passes to there, and this Las Rifle section is going to occupy this building over here. The final moves of the turn are going to be for this tactical detachment, who are going to move forward. Now they have 2 jump pack units who are considered to be independent. They can have their own order issued to them, but in this case, they simply have the advance order because of a rule where if you forget to issue a unit in order, they're considered to automatically have an advance, which means that you have a sort of tie break and no going back on your orders if you forget to give them something. So they're having an advance, and their coherency is considered to be in range if they are placed within 6 inches of another friendly model from the same detachment, meaning that they can operate sort of slightly independently from the primary detachment. These guys are going to advance, and because they can, they're going to hold this building and still be in range of their friends. Finally, the last unit to move is going to be the Dreadnoughts, and they're going to march. They are not considered infantry. They do not have the infantry keyword. They have the walker keyword, which means they only double their move, but they do get to move 10 inches. So going 5, and 5 again. And hoping to get the initiative next turn. All right, so the movement phase is over. We are now on to the shooting phase of the combat phase. So the combat phase kind of encompasses shooting and melee. It goes first fire, anyone with first fire orders, then engagement, anyone in melee will then fight, and then finally advancing fire, which means anyone with an advance order will have their combat action happen. So regardless of who has the initiative, even though the Marine player won in this case, because there's a first fire order over here, the Leman Russes are going to get to shoot. So the first thing they will do is select a target. They are excited these Dreadnoughts are in the open, and they're going to fire at them. Then they select a weapon system. In this case, they are all armed with battle cannons and hull-mounted las cannons, and they total the dice for that weapon system. So in this case, the Leman Russ cannon, it has a 25-inch range, so it's in range. It has a 4+ to hit and a -1 AP. So with first fire orders, they're going to take 4 shots into these Dreadnoughts, hitting on 4s. So 2 hits. Once hits are placed, they have to be allocated. They'll be allocated to the Dreadnoughts with assault cannons, and both of them have to make saves at a -1, which means their armor save of 4+ goes to a 5+. Both fail, those wounds are applied, and these 2 models are removed. Now that is going to require a morale test later on, because they have taken half of their unit or more in casualties. Now, Dreadnoughts also have special rules like invulnerable save and armored. They would have, any light hits would have gone away, but these are las cannons, they go all the way through. And the las cannons, sorry, these were battle cannons. The las cannons now 22-inch range, also hitting on force. They have the anti-tank rule and the arc front rule, so they only shoot in the front. What the anti-tank rule does is it actually allows them, it drops their AP to 0 against things that aren't armored vehicles. So it sounds like it's a good rule. It actually just means that it obliterates one thing really well, so it's not very useful against infantry. So 4 shots again, hitting on 4s. That's going to be 1 hit. And then they had no roll to wound. They have to make an armor save at -1, so a 5+, and they fail. So another Dreadnought is destroyed. So, having lost 3 of their members, they now have to make a morale check on a 3+. They are outside of range of their commander, who, if he was in range, would be able to pass on the inspiring rule and use his leadership. So on a 3 or better, they will maintain their order, otherwise they will fall back, and they pass, so they are all right. That ends the first fire phase. We're into the engagement phase now. No one is engaged in melee, so we skip over to advancing fire, and because the Marines have the initiative, they get to fire first. And they're going to start with the Sycarans, who are going to blast those Ogrins. Now the Sycaran Vehicle Squadron, they have accelerator autocannons with 3 dice each, hitting on 5s. They have tracking, which means they're better at hitting airplanes, and with the flyer special rule, but of course these are just Ogrins. Now the Ogrins are in cover, which will create a -1 to hit, and they only hit on 6s. And that results in 0 hits. Then their heavy bolters also get to fire. And their heavy bolters have the special rule called point defense. They could shoot a different target if they wanted to, but they're going to shoot the same target. So 2 dice for each of the heavy bolters. That means 4 dice per model, 8 dice total, hitting on 5s, and it will go to 6s because of the cover saves. And no hits are sustained, which means that those Ogrins are safe from harm, and that order is now removed as well. Back to the Auxilia, anyone with an advanced order can now shoot, and the Las Rifle Tertio in this building decides they are going to shoot the Assault Marines because they are within 6-inch range of their Las Rifles. Now, those Las Rifles will hit on a 5+. Those Marines are in the open, and there's 1 dice each for 4 models, resulting in no hits again, and so that is removed. The Assault Marines can fire back as they are also in range with their bolt pistols. Now they shoot slightly better than the average Tertio. So hitting on 5s, they do have to shoot into cover though, which means it'll turn into 6s. And they both miss. The last advancing fire unit is going to be the Tertio over here with the commander. All of their weapon ranges are 8 inches, which will put them out of range of the other building. And that's it. They are done firing. So the only remaining units to fire now will be Marine units. Starting over here, the missile launcher stands have a greater range than the bolters. So even though the bolters can only shoot a grand total of 8 inches, the missile launchers can shoot 20, and therefore they are going to fire into that commander, because if they can kill him, they will manage to sever the chain of command and the HQ unit will be gone. So shooting them, they choose and opt to use, there's 2 types, they can use frag or anti-tank. Crack missiles, they're going to use frag missiles because it ignores the cover. And that means that with 4 shots, they will hit on 4s, and there will be no cover saves because they're just obliterating the building basically with those shots. So 4s to hit, that's going to be 3 hits, and that's going to require 3 saves with no cover saves from the Tertio. So their normal save is going to be a 6+, and there's no AP on these shots, so just 6s to save, and they make none of them. And with none of those saves made, 3 of these units will die, so 1, 2, 3 are removed, and they will have to make a morale check when this is over as well. Now, none of the other weapons are in range from that, which will end their shooting. And it's a morale check. The infantry commander has a morale of 2+, and he passes. So that unit stays in the building, even though they've been shelled almost into oblivion, which is not feeling great for them. So the last advancing fire unit will be these Marines occupying this building. They are within 8 inches of a stand of Ogrins, and so they'll take some shots with their bolters. They're not within the 6 inches to track their special rule, but it's still close enough that the 4 of them will be able to roll their Legion bolters with 1 dice each on 5s, and they have the assault rule, So they're going to hit on 5s. They did not get inside half range, so they can't reroll any misses, and the 4s will miss. And that's it. All eligible units to shoot have shot. The marching order units do not get to fire, so you could even remove those during the movement phase if you wanted to, as they are no longer eligible for shooting. And we've completed round 1, and we're on to round 2. All right, so at the beginning of round 2, we return to the top, and we do the orders phase again. So with all orders placed, the 2 commanders will now reveal their orders. So a first fire for this tactical detachment, charge for the assault marines, with a separate order this time, charge for the dread, who is the last of his talon, first fire for this tertio, first fire for the Legion Russes, charge for the Ogrins, march for the remains of the tertio and the commander, and then over here we'll have march for the, first fire for the Sycaran. Realizing that these guys are probably out of range, I thought they might be, but they are not, they then revert to an advance order. All right, so it's initiative now. On round 2, the Marines get a 1 to a 1, so re-rolling ties. It's a 5 for the Marines, and a 3 this time for the Solar Auxilia, meaning that the Astartes will go first in the movement phase. So on to the movement phase. This is where we get to do things called charges, and charging can potentially pin you down. So instead of allowing these Ogrins to charge, this Dreadnought is going to sell his life dearly and charge in to fight. Now you could charge the Legion Russes as well. He is going to do so. So moving 5 with a double move, and then 5 again, he has decided to opt to charge this unit of Legion Russes. And his charge is complete. So over to movement. The Ogrins, likewise, plan to charge the Sycarans, and they get to move their 10 inches, and each of them will find a dancing partner with a Sycaran. So the central objective is now uncontested. The first fire units will not be able to move at all, but the marching tertio decides to leave the building and occupy the next one. So they occupy the central objective and try to hold it. With first fire on these 2 units, they cannot fire, so instead they will sit still and hopefully be able to shoot these guys out of the building. The Assault Marines are the last moving unit, and they get to make a charge move. Maintaining coherency with the unit in the building, they decide to charge this building. And that will pin this unit, as they cannot now fall back. So if something of an equal or greater size engages you in melee, you can no longer move except to withdrawal. So they'll be stuck there to fight that infantry unit for the remainder of the round. With all moves complete, as everything else has first fire, we now move into the combat phase, and first fire units get to shoot. Now, knowing that this Dreadnought was coming to combat, this Legion Russes could have opted to fire against it, because they are considered engaged but not pinned. Now, this is an interesting concept. If you are bigger than something scale-wise, a Dreadnought being scale 1 and Legion Russes being scale 2, you can still fire, but there is a -1 penalty for shooting, and that means these guys can shoot into the melee even though they're engaged and taking shots against the Dreadnought. So that you can't get pinned down as badly as you could in, let's say, a 40K game. It's kind of the big guns never tire rule, where you can still shoot into combat and have some ability to do some shooting. So with priority though on the Marine side, they do get to shoot first, and this unengaged unit of Marines is going to choose to shoot the tertio in the building. Firing their missile launchers again, that'll be 4 dice in the first fire step, removing their order. And they get 1 hit on a 4+. So with a 6+ save, because it ignores cover, this tertio loses their last lance rifle section, and it's just the commander left inside. Now the bolters are also in range, and that's going to allow some additional fire, but there will be a cover penalty, meaning they only hit on 6s. I do believe they're outside of 6 though, so no re-rolling 1s. Oh no, they're just inside of 6. So they will get to re-roll their 1s. So with the 4 remaining stands plus the commander has a Volkite charger he can fire with Deflagrate. We will do the tactical scans first. Hitting on 6s, re-rolling nothing here. The Deflagrate Volkite charger hitting on a 5 goes to a 6, and he hits. So that's going to cause a cover save on the command unit here, which will require a 4+ cover save, and pass and live. Now they will still have to make a morale check to see if they break on his 3+ and fail, which means they are going to gain a fallback order. and fall back at the end of the turn. And they cannot be issued another order unless they rally during the end phase. So that's first fire done for the Marines. We're on to first fire for the Leman Russes. Now they could also opt to overwatch during the move of these units. Both of these units could, and lose their token for the rest of the turn. They did not do so, which means the unengaged models can shoot into the Dreadnought. Vice versa, these Sycarans are currently engaged. But they are larger than the Ogrins, as the Ogrins are Infantry 1, and the Sycarans are Vehicle 2. So taking their shots with a -1 to hit because they are engaged. The battle cannons hitting on 5s. Do not hit at all. The las cannons also hitting on 5s. 2 will hit, so 2 saves for that Dreadnought. And it passes one and fails the other and is destroyed. The Sycarans shooting back now into the Ogrins. They get their accelerator autocannons hitting on 6s because of the engagement and hitting not at all. And their heavy bolters with 8 dice also hitting on 6s. And re-rolling because of their Legion special rule, they hit once, meaning the Ogrins need to make a single save on a 6+. And 1 will die. All right, so with the first fire phase over, we are now on to, oh sorry, there's a unit of Marines left. They can bolter this poor Tertio to death. 4 bolter shots. Hitting on 6s because of the cover. 2 hits. And that means 2 4+ cover saves for the Commander's Tertio, which fails both and is destroyed. All right, so now we're on to the engagement phase. We have 2 engaged units here, and they are considered to be engaged with the models they are in base contact with. So this Charadon unit Charonite unit is going to be engaged with 1 of these, and the Sycaran is going to be engaged with 2 of these over here. The Marine commander, though, can pick which of these 2 to go against, and is going to pick the Assault Marines because it's going to probably be more fun for them. So the Assault Marines have to fight. They are considered in base contact with everyone in that detachment, and you divide it evenly into one-on-one and many-on-one combats. People who've played the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game or the Middle-earth strategy battle game will be familiar with this concept, but it basically means if there are 2 guys fighting 4 guys, each of those 2 guys has to fight an even number of individual opponents in this combat. And they'll fight them one at a time. Each additional combat they fight in is going to give them the opponent an extra dice as they basically get more and more worn out during the advance. So when you do a combat, what's going to happen is the Assault Marines are going to have their close assault factor, their CAF. In this case, for Assault Marines, that is a +3. So they start with a basic +3. They charge this turn, which will give them a +4 total. So a +4 to their 2d6 roll to see who wins the fight. Whoever wins the fight, the defender suffers an automatic wound with no saves of any kind allowed, as they're overwhelmed. Now the Las Rifle Tertio, they get 0 close assault factor, but because they're in close order, be their army special rule, they will get a +1. They're defending a building, gives them an additional +2. So they are also a +3, or starting off at a +3 in this combat. The charge bonus, of course, going to +4 for the Marines will give them a slight edge. So we roll for the first combat. Assault Marines getting a +4 against the +3 for the Tertio. So +4 and 8 total for the Assault Marines. The Tertio gets a grand total of 9 + 3 is 12 and destroys the Assault Marines in the first round of engagement. The second one fighting doesn't have to bother fighting. And we're on to the second Assault Marine stand now going in. Once again at +4, they roll an 11. The Tertio at +3 gets an 11 as well, and they tie, and that means that the combat there is a draw. Now the second stand goes into fight for the Tertio. The Marines are still at +4 because they charged and get a 12, but the Tertio is going to get an additional die now for 3d6. And their total is 8 + 3 is 11, which means one of them will die. So the one that was currently embarked in the building is destroyed, and both sides have won a single combat. They've killed someone on each team, meaning that the combat results are a draw, 1 on each side. That means they remain engaged, neither side makes a morale test, and the combat will continue. So with that resolved, the auxiliary commander gets to pick an engagement to fight through, and picks the Ogrins. Now there is a 2-on-1 and 1-on-1 combat over here. So the commander of the auxiliary decides to start with the 1-on-1. Ogrins are terrifying. They have their 2 dice base, but with Rend on their Charonite claws, they get an additional dice no matter what. So they start with 3 dice in melee, and they have a close assault factor of +3, +4 because they charged. So that poor Psycharon tank only has a close assault of +2, making it probably mostly dead. So with +4, the Knights, oh my gosh, only get a 7, and the Psycharon rolling back gets a 4. We rolled 5 ones, spectacular. So having lost, that Psycharon with 1 wound is destroyed and removed. The second Psycharon has to fight 2 combats, and so it's going to roll as well against, once again, Knights at +4, close assault factor. That is a grand total of 18. I don't think there's anything it can do to survive here. It gets a 6, 7, 8, and is also destroyed, and that ends the combat, with the 2 commanders, or the two Knight units just completely wiped out. And those are the 2 engagements. So we move on to advancing fire. There are no models with advance orders left, and that ends the end phase of round 2. In the end phase, no one has taken casualties that are still alive enough that they could make a morale check, and so we just move on to the next round. So while things are looking pretty dire for the Marines, no one has scored this objective yet, as they're not within 3 inches of it at the end of turn 2. So we're on to turn 3 and the orders phase, and everyone's mission in order. The Marines have one advantage now. Because the Legate Commander is dead, the only orders that can be issued to anyone on the Auxilia army are advanced. They are now out of command. And that will significantly limit the Ogrins in particular, because they can no longer charge. All they can do is walk. The Marines themselves can still get anything they want, so first fire in this tactical stand, first fire on the other tactical stand, and charge on the Assault Marines. All right, so rolling initiative on round 3. The Marine Commander rolls a 6, and the Auxilia rolls a 3, meaning that the Marine Commander will get to move first. Of course, there's only one unit here that can move, and that's going to be the Assault Marines. They can be issued a charge order even though they're engaged, but if they charge, they won't be able to charge the same unit they're currently engaged with. The reason for doing so is if those guys fell back with an advance order, they'd be able to charge them again later on. So these guys will activate at once, not moving because they have first fire orders, and the Assault Marines not being able to move either because they're currently engaged. That will end their order and they will stay where they are. So now we're over to the Auxilia, and they'll make a move order. The Leman Russes, finally with an advance as they've lost command, can move 8 inches, and they decide they're going to move to grab the objective and hopefully obliterate anybody nearby. The Marines have no one left eligible to move because everyone's first firing, so it's back to the Solar Auxilia. The Tertio decides to leave, walking 5. Actually, no. It's probably wiser for them to stay in the building engaging the Assault Marines because it keeps them out of it. So instead, activating the Knight Ogres, they will also walk 5. And while they can't get anywhere out of the open, they can at least move towards that building and hopefully garrison it next turn. That ends the movement phase as these guys decide to stay inside the building and distract the Assault Marines. And so we're on to the combat phase. First fire orders, the Marines will get to go, starting with this unit of assault or regular Marines. They are within 8 inches of the Knight Ogres and decide to blast them. That's 4 bolter rounds, hitting on 5s, 1 hit. So 1 6+ save for the Ogres, and they fail, meaning the one that's in range is destroyed. And they have not taken enough casualties yet to suffer a morale check. The Marine player, on the other hand, decides they are going to fire also into the Ogres because they need to wipe them out before they can get into that building, and so blast with everything they have. 4 bolter stands, and they are within 6 inches, meaning they will reroll 1s because of their brutal assault. So the bolters on 5s, they hit once, so 1 more 6+ save for the Ogrins, which they fail. And then finally the missile launchers, also getting 4 dice on 4s this time, rerolling 1s because of their proximity. Will hit twice, causing 2 more saves in the last stand, and they pass 1, fail 1, and the Ogrins are wiped out. With first fire complete, we're on to the engagement step. Now this poor Assault Marine stand needs to fight 4 stands of the Auxilia. It is very difficult to dig the Auxilia out of buildings, and that's why I think they're so important to the game, as they show sort of like the, I think, potential. When you have more weapons, like demolisher weapons, you can also blow them up to get the infantry out of them. So fighting 3 stands in a row, no longer charging, because they didn't make a charge move this turn. They will have +3 to their close assault factor against +3 again for the Auxilia. So the first stand of Auxilia they have to fight, They get a grand total of 8, plus 3 is 11. The Auxilia get a 10 and are destroyed. Now the Auxilia are going to get 3d6 for this next combat. The first one, the Marines get a total of 7. The Auxilia get much higher, and the Marines are wiped out. Now, having occupied this building and having an advance order, that is going to mean that those Auxilia do get to fire during the following advancing fire step, along with the Legion Russes. There are no Marines left on the table with any kind of advancing fire order, so it's just the Auxilia shooting, and they will start with them. It's 2 shots into the Marines in the building, because they're within 8 inches, hitting on 6s because of the cover, and the -1. That's a hit. This Marine stand has a 5+ armor save, but will instead opt to use the 4+ building save, and pass. Then the Legion Russes get to go, and they are going to shoot that same exact unit with their their battle cannons first. Normally hitting on 4s, they will hit on 5s, and miss except for 1. And that Marine will fail a save and lose a stand. They have 3 stands remaining. And then the las cannons, because they have anti-tank, lose their AP, not that it really mattered against the cover. Hitting on 4s goes to 5s, and forcing 2 saves, which are both passed. All the shooting now complete, with the advancing fire done. We get to score, and because it is round 3, instead of scoring 5 points, they will score 7 points of victory points. And the Auxilia are ahead 7-0, round 4. All right, with the 4th turn ready to rock and roll, we already know what orders are going to be issued here, because they have to have advance orders, as there's no commander left on the table. And the Marines are issuing 2 blind orders to try and salvage what is left of this. All right, so having revealed and starting to roll initiative, the Marine player gambles and gets a 6, and the Auxilia gets a 5. So getting to move first, these Marines decide to exit and charge the Legion Russes. Going 10 inches. Now, as they have an advance order, the Legion Russes choose to overwatch, which means they will lose their advance order, but they can shoot on the way in. At a -2 penalty, they'll hit on 6s with their 4 battle cannons, but this could prevent them from getting overwhelmed. They hit once with the battle cannon, forcing a 5+ save, which they pass, even with the -1, and then the las cannons miss completely. And they are now engaged by the charging Marines. This Tertio, deciding that they are better off staying in the building and not dying, will hunker down. And then it comes down to this unit of Marines who also decide to charge, going 8 + 2 inches, and engage the Legion Russes from behind. All right, combat phase. You can shoot into combat when something is larger and engaged, as you are not considered to be pinned, and that means that the Marines can be fired upon by those 2 remaining stands of Auxilia, but that will happen after the engagement phase, as no one here is on first fire. So starting with the engagement phase, this is a many-on-1 and one-on-1 combat. This Legion Russ will have to fight a standard Marine each. This one will fight 2, and this one will fight 1, as it's now divided up. So the first one-on-one, the Marines are +2 normally to their CAF, +3 for charging. The Legion Russ squadron is +2 CAF. They're actually fairly dangerous up close. So rolling for the Marines, they get a grand total of 7, whereas the Legion Russ gets a total of 10 and wipes them out. The next one, fighting one-on-one at +3, gets a 10, and the Legion Russ gets a 9, and it's wiped out. Then the third stand, at a +3 for charging, gets a 12, and at a +2 and a 10, this one is also killed. It would have had to fight those ones second. And then finally, last but not least, fighting the commander himself, who has a +3 CAF, goes to +4 for charging. He will have a +2, so +4 for the Marines. That's an 11 to an 8. This last Legion Russ is wiped out. So having now lost significant numbers, 1 casualty to 3, that Legion Russ has to make a morale check or withdraw.
It fails its morale check and is forced to withdraw. Now it's not currently engaged as no one's in base contact. It's going to fall back D6 inches, moving away towards its own friendly table edge if possible, and will stop in cover behind these rocks, trying to hide as best it can from these vengeful-looking Space Marines.
All right, that means during the advancing fire step, these guys can now shoot, firing their las rifles into this two-man unit, and both missing. And that's removed. At the end of round 4, the Marines have taken the central objective. It was 5-7-9 this round, so they go to 9 points. And it's the final round of the game, round 5. All right, round 5 of the game. Only orders being able to be issued to this broken unit already was charge or advance, and then same for them, but their commander's gone, so we know that's going to be the case. Then a charge order for the commander's unit, and an advance order for these guys. Initiative roll, the Marine commander gets a 1, and the auxiliary also gets a 1. They cannot win initiative this game. The auxiliary wins this time around, as they get to move first in the movement phase. With an advance order, the Legion Astartes decides it is discretion over valor, and will move back to attempt to shoot, going its 8 inches. With a charge move, the Marines now are forced to charge this tertio, locking them in combat and keeping them from moving. The final 2 Marine stands opt to take the central objective with their advance. And these guys opt to overwatch on the way in, because why not, on 6s. They lose their advancing fire order, but don't hit. All right, so engagement phase. Shooting in the engagement phase, or sorry, fighting in the engagement phase, it is going to be many on 1, so each of these guys will have to fight, it looks like probably 2 stands, because 4 of them get into melee. So the first auxilia unit, having 1 initiative, is going to roll against the commander and 1 stand of infantry. So it has a +1 for being in close order, because there's still 2 stands left for now, and then a +2 for being in a building, so +3. It gets a 12 total. The Marine stand has +2, +3 for charging, and rolls a 9 and is wiped out. Now the tertio has to roll 3d6 though against the commander. So the tertio gets a total of 12, and the commander with a +4 for having charged, and 3d6 gets a total of 14, and that stand is wiped out. The final stand, and literally the last stand, now attacking, is no longer in close order, so only gets a +2 and gets a 4 total. The Marine stand with a total of +3 is going to be a 7 and butchers them on the way down. Now, because they completely wiped out the people defending, this Marine unit is now able to occupy the building as a consolidate move and are placed inside, and the rest placed on the card. Although they've lost their order to charge, or they've ended their order to charge, and they won't be able to fire in the advancing fire step. So advancing fire, this Legion attempts to destroy these guys in the building with his battle cannon first. He misses, and then with his las cannon, he also misses. The Marines in the building, out of range, will score the final round, giving them 12 points for a total of 21. And at the end of it all, they are in the center of the table and not holding any table quarter. And this table quarter over here has 5 Marine stands for a grand total scale of 5 to a 2-point Legion Astartes, which means they control this, which means the table quarter objective will be scored once by the Marines as well, taking them from a total of 21 to a total of... Control the battlefield, it's going to be for controlling 1, they get 5 DPs. So 26 to 7 at the end of it all for the Marines, driving out the Solar Auxilia from the battlefield and showcasing the order system and the movement phase and the combat phase and the end phase in Legions Imperialis, the Horus Heresy. So there you go, big thanks for watching. You can check out my reviews of the 2 army lists, the core mechanics of the game, as well as the components of the box, also out today. We'll see you for more Legions Imperialis when we paint up some bigger legal armies and do some new terrain so we can try out the sort of full gamut of what's available as things come out. Till then, I'm Ash.